we've got 4 team principal movements, if you like. They're not all new team principals. You can see them in behind us now. Let's just start, if we can, go that way, with the man in orange. So that's Andrea Stella. We know about Andrea Stella. He had time at Ferrari's performance engineer for Kimi Raikkonen, joined McLaren in 2016. And with Andreas Seidel moving across to, and I'll say Sauber in inverted commas because he's overseeing the Audi programme coming in for 2026. He's a really popular guy. We know that about Andreas Stella. What sort of job do you think he'll do working with Zach and as the team principal de facto there?
Well, he's very experienced. This is quite interesting, the way that team principals are moving around now, because other than Toto Wolff, none of them have a stake in the team. So if you think back to Colin Chapman and Ken Tyrrell, Frank Williams, Ron Dennis and so on, they all had stakes in their team. So they were wedded to that team, of course. So now the team principals can move around. He's very experienced, Andrea Stella, and highly regarded, as you say. Being an engineer is one thing. Being a personnel manager, hiring and firing and galvanising and motivating a group of several hundred people is a different challenge, and that's maybe he can do that extremely well. We'll find out. So I think it's, you know, you can't just put engineers in charge of that and expect it to go swimmingly. But I think he knows enough about different aspects of Formula One for it to be just fine. Another
man who knows an awful lot about Formula One is James Vowles, going to your old team. And for me, actually, it was one of the highlights of the off-season, hearing about his appointment. Yes, an inspired choice.
And also a big shock in a way that someone of his importance, the stature in Mercedes, has decided to go out and to pastures new and learn a bit of the outside world, because, you know, they've been together a long time, that crew. What will he bring to Williams? What can he bring to Williams? I mean, in himself, I mean, it's a great opportunity for him to establish himself in these debates, the arguments they have amongst the team principals. He can get stuck in. He could even maybe have an argument with his old boss, Toto, you know, over the way they think the sport should go. But it's going to be very interesting watching his performance at Williams. I'm sure that he can motivate the Williams team.
OK, the 2 men you can see over the other side there, you know, going into Alfa Romeo, Alessandro Aluni Bravi, who has replaced Fred Vasseur, very kind of Sauber thing to say. He's not actually a team principal, he's a team representative, but I'm wondering how that's going to work, as we mentioned, with Andreas Seidel coming in as CEO and overseeing, you know, the big manufacturer in Audi coming in 2026.
Yeah, I was interested to see Andreas at the test in Bahrain, so clearly he's more hands-on than I thought, because I initially thought he was just there, you know, for the long-term picture, but he's getting stuck in. I think Alessandro will be there on a day-to-day basis. He's been around the sport. You know, he worked alongside Nicholas Todd, managing Felipe Massa. He's worked at Trident, the GP2 team, or Formula 2 team, I should call it. So he's been around the sport. He's been an advisor, I think, working in the background at Sauber. So, but ultimately, I think Seidel is the boss. And that's a good thing for them, you know, because they're in this weird limbo phase, aren't they? Yeah. They still got Alfa Romeo, but really they're all building towards the Audi arrival.
Okay. Let's talk more on Fred Vasseur. I know we've touched on it already, but how do you think he's going to fit in culturally at Ferrari? He's got a strong relationship with Charles Leclerc. They've worked together and know each other incredibly well. Will that make a difference?
Is that Fred behind me?
It sure is. He's peering over your shoulder. Smiling. He's OK.
Something Damien said earlier on, I would have tried to find a way to keep Mattia Binotto and Fred Vasseur in the team, because if you think back to their glory days with Michael Schumacher, they had De Montezemolo, Todt, Brawn, Rory Byrne, Stefano Domenicali, for example, and that was the kind of might that Ferrari needed. So it's a big job for one person. Fred knows which way's up, and I don't think he won't suffer fools. I think he'll get in there and get on with it. But whoa, what a tall order that is! And of course, the fact that he knows Leclerc very well it can mean absolutely nothing. He's got 2 great drivers there in Leclerc and Sainz, and he needs to make sure they're both super comfortable.
But will Carlos feel at a disadvantage because of his relationship with Charles?
He shouldn't do, unless he just sees a little glimmer of something, of somebody a little bit too pleased when the other side of the garage has had a good day. But I don't think that'll be a problem. You know, choosing between one or the other driver is the last thing on Vasseur's to-do list.
Yeah, I mean, he said as much, didn't he, when he was talking to Ted at the end of testing, saying, "Look, there's no such thing. That's a problem I don't need to worry about now. One and two yet." But he also said that it's the best job in Formula One. I mean, I think it's the most highly pressured job in Formula One. But I'm sure if there's a man for the job, it's smiling Fred Vasseur, as we like to call him. Let's get back out to Bahrain because we're probably delaying their dinners, and there's a very good Indian restaurant around the corner from there. I don't know if they've been or they're going or whatever.
They look hungry. They look hungry.
They always look hungry. Yeah, Craig, let's look ahead to
come on.
Let's look ahead to the first race of the season.
Yes, Les. But I think we ought to just dwell for a moment on a couple of the different problems these team bosses are facing. And thinking about Andrea Stella, will he have to wrestle with Lando Norris, who maybe be feeling at the stage of a career he's at, he needs to be fighting for podiums, winning races and so on. How corrosive for McLaren could it be if that just becomes a narrative, constant narrative?
He needs full support and he needs patience from Lando Norris at a time when Lando Norris might not be too patient if the car is as slow and difficult to break as it might have looked in testing. Lando is that team leader. He's got a very good rookie alongside him, but the bulk of the points surely are coming through Lando, and Andrea Stella needs him on side. And if there is a split in that relationship, Lando might be looking elsewhere as the season goes on.
I asked Andrea Stella, did you always want to be a team boss? And he said to me, well, jobs in my career have tended to have found me. Not the case with James Vowles. You sense this is someone who really wants to lead the team. He wants to make his name as a boss. Picking up on that point Martin was making earlier.
Yeah, well, I think James Vowles has always been an ambitious character, and I think his natural career progression had come to an end at Mercedes, unless Toto stepped down, which Toto said, yeah, he's going to take my job. That's the only place for him to go if he wants even more from this team. So, you know, James Vowles is used to, as chief strategist, he built a team around him. For the last couple of seasons, he wasn't actually the guy on the pit wall. So he had built that team up, so he's used to recruiting people and using that strategic brain that he has. And I just hope that he can do the same thing at Williams, but as a whole. I'm excited for him. I think it's a new challenge, and I think he could build himself up to become a good team principal in the future.